to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. Your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. And tonight it is, of course, the preview show brought to you by us here at the Fanzone, sponsored by Loving My Socials, the place to go for all of your branding, graphic design, social media needs. So if you've got a business, or you perhaps know someone who's got a business and they're looking for a helping hand, perhaps with some marketing and things like that, then get in touch with Leanne and she will sort you out. And she does a wonderful job, by the way. But the preview show returns. Apologies for the slightly late start. A couple of Wi-Fi issues on my end meant that we had to fiddle around with the buttons a little bit and things weren't going quite as planned. But we're with you. A very warm welcome to you all in the chat. And a warm welcome to our guest this evening. It's Russ from the Scarf. You have to excuse my pronunciation. The Scarf Bergara War.
Yeah, well done. Yeah.
There we go. There you have it. And if you want to find out them, they're in the description. Go and have a look and you can head over to their channel and whatnot. And yeah, thanks for joining us though, Russ.
No worries. Glad to be here, mate.
So it is, of course, Stockport County, our next league game. Feels like it's been a little while since we did a preview show. Obviously, Walsall at the weekend. We didn't do one for that. Probably best, to be honest. We'll move on from that. We don't really need to dissect that. We're out the cup, and I think that's all that matters. I probably would have preferred to have come out with it. Perhaps not with such a strong lineup fielded, but it is what it is, and we're back to league focus. Ben, how are you feeling ahead of Stockport County?
Yeah, feeling good. I mean, as you say, out the cup, it was kind of it's the cup games are always a bit at the early rounds. It's kind of like, oh, if we get through, we might get a decent draw, but if we get out, everyone's like, oh yeah, didn't want to be in the cup anyway. Let's focus on the league. But yeah, as you say, the strong line, it was a bit of a weird one, especially with the injuries we've got at the minute. But yeah, I mean, we don't really have much youth that are ready to come through at the minute, so it's one of them. And Walsall are a decent team. They're probably going to go up this season. So look, it's not like we've been beaten by a non-league team or something like that. Embarrassed. So yeah, look, focus on the league now. It opens up a weekend. Maybe we can play the Rotherham rearranged game, which would be good. We don't have to cram it into a Tuesday night. But yeah, look, we're in great form in the league, feeling good.
So without further ado, we'll get stuck into our first section of this evening's preview show, our season so far. Things are looking up for the Wanderers, I think it is safe to say, excusing, obviously, the defeat against Walsall in the Cup. Looking at league games, we're doing all right. Post-Birmingham, things looked like they could go south, but, 2 wins in our last 2 league games. The Birmingham game was a little bit of a slip, and I think we were all disappointed perhaps with the way that we played, not so much the scoreline or the result. I think we all expected that somewhat. Some of you won't like me saying that, but there we have it. And things are going better, significantly better for Bolton Wanderers. But the one thing I think we all said, looking at our next run of fixtures, Stockport, Rotherham away, Blackpool at home, Mansfield away, those sort of games are the ones that we're looking at and thinking this is a little bit more of a challenge than the likes of, with no disrespect, Stevenage, Burton, Northampton, Crawley, teams that I think we would have all agreed we should be beating. So this next run, I think for me, and I think the whole podcast has decided these are the games that count, and these are the ones that where Everett, I think, will be truly tested and judged on how far he's come in this short space of time. But season so far, that's where Wanderers are at. What about Stockport County? You are currently sitting 10th in the table. Played one more game than most of the teams around you. How are you feeling, though, with the season so far? Is it excusing the defeat against Wickham, which was surprising, I think, for most of us that checked in on that. But are you happy with where you are so far?
I think so, yeah. On balance, I think we're happy. Again, like you say, notwithstanding the humbling we got from Wickham on Tuesday, which was just awful. But it's nice to know that it's our first home 5-0 defeat since 2010, which was Port Vale back when we used to be in the league first time round. So we've had a lot of success over the past 9 years, so we can't grumble too much about that. But yeah, it's been fair to middling. There's a lot that goes around it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. We are 10th, hoping to be top half. Personally, I'm hoping that we're top half come the end of the season. We've had some good results, we've had some bad results. I think the team's just sort of finding its way, and you'll probably see that again on Saturday when we come to the lineup element of this show.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, we've all agreed that this is our biggest test in terms of the run of fixtures. But Ben, looking at the season so far, are you? Hopefully, someone isn't watching in the chat. Are you happy with where we are so far?
I mean, if you'd at the start of the season, after 13 games, if you said we were 6th, I'd have been a bit maybe like to be a couple of places more, but like the points in it are basically negligible at the minute. But after 5 games, if you'd have said you'd be 6th, 6 points off top, I'd have gone, yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, saying last night after 5 games we were 21st, and basically the whole fan base wanted Everett out, apart from us. But yeah, to where we are now compared to 8 games ago is a massive difference. I think, as we said, look, where we'll be in 4 games' time will really show us if we have turned a corner and improved. But yeah, one thing I wanted to say to Ross is I remember listening to you last night. If no one knows, I was on their podcast last night for the bit of the preview, and I stayed to listen to them talking afterwards. And there was a bit of a debate going on about like where you think you'll be at the end of the season. I think Waggy said push for a playoff place, and I think quite a few in the comments are thinking, "Oh, playoffs is mad," or we'll be happy with mid-table. What were the pre-season aims? Were they set out by the club or by the manager, or was it kind of just a general expectation level? Where was it at?
It's a really good question. I think it depends who you talk to. So the director of football basically just said, "Enjoy the ride," because we're on this objective of getting to the championship within 7 years, and that started 4 years ago. So we've got another 3 years to get to the championship. So he said, whatever happens, just enjoy the ride. Dave Challoner's really ambitious. He wants to do as well as he can. You probably wouldn't they've probably got points in it, a points target behind the scenes, but they'll never say that. So I'm thinking they're probably thinking they'll try and get into the playoffs with the players we've got. Me personally, as I said before, top half for me. You might have heard me say it on our podcast, but we're 3 to 4 months into a 36-month sort of plan, really, to get to the championship. So I'm pretty happy with it. Not happy about getting spanked 5-0 at home by Wickham, by the way, but pretty happy with it. When I think you said it, when you zoom out, I quite like that sort of phrase. When you zoom out where we come from and where we're going, I think I'm quite happy. I think expectation rises. We won our first 3 games, so people start going, "Oh, we're going to win it. Oh, our playoffs is dead easy now," and that expectation level does rise. But we got a reality check against Leyton Orient. We had a reality check on Tuesday. We're probably going to get more reality checks. It might come on Saturday against you lot. It's definitely going to come at some point. We're going to get, we've got Birmingham away early December. I'm sure that's going to be either a reality check or we'll manage to get something. So I think for me, again, top half, but people are thinking, could we sneak it, get a few wins? Who knows if the team starts to gel, stay clear of injuries. We've had lots of those. You never know.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because when I was listening to you then, there's actually quite a few parallels from when we first got promoted. I'm pretty sure when our owners took over, they put out a 5-year plan to get to the championship. This is year 5. And so when we got promoted, to me, it was kind of, look, we've seen how rubbish we've been in League One in the past. Let's just stay up. And we had a pretty good start. I think after 7 or 8 games, we were in the top 6. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And then it was kind of right, look, we might have a decent chance here. And then October, November, December completely decimated us. We had loads of injuries, and we dropped down to 18th, 19th, I think, by January. And then it was just like, right, we're in a bit of a relegation battle here. We need to just make sure we stay up. Forget mid-table, forget playoffs. We'll take staying up. It's our first season. And then we made a few decent signings in January and finished like 9th and had a really good end to the season. So it's funny hearing you say your expectations change all the time, don't they? Football's it's a fickle game. You can win 3 in a row and suddenly think, oh, we're all right here, and then lose 3 in a row. And So yeah, I think it's quite a level-headed mid-table, but yeah, you'd like to be comfortable, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. The club sort of don't help themselves. I mean, they don't help themselves. That sounds negative. We do help ourselves, but they're dead ambitious. And the amount of money we've spent since Mark Stock came in 2020, I mean, we're 19 million deep now. If things are to be believed. So, and that's not just on players. That's on the whole infrastructure, training ground, academy, all these things, ground improvements, that kind of thing. So. People see that number and go, well, we should be winning every week. Well, it doesn't really work like that. And League One is really where, for me, it starts to get serious in English football. The top of League One is where you get the likes of Bolton, Barnsley, Charlton, Birmingham. You'd really big clubs, and we get 8, 9, 10,000 every week. So we're not quite there. So I think it's like a building process for us. That's why I'm quite happy. But if you talk to other fans, like you say, Ben, I know you're both called Ben, aren't you? But Ben on the left of the screen, you like you say, you win 3, people go, oh yeah, their expectation goes to that level, and that's where they expect to stay. And then if you start to lose 1, like on Tuesday night, there was people shouting at the players and all sorts of stuff going on, saying this shit. And I heard someone say that one of our players, he said, "Run, you fat C word," and I'm thinking, bloody, I'd like to be as fat as that. Jesus, look at the size of him. Do you know what I mean? So football does funny things to people, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially when you've had such an amazing 3-4 seasons, well, longer than that now, where you're so used to winning. Like you get to a point where you're not just going to go straight to the top of the league again. It's interesting. As you say, League One this season has been 10 times more money spent than basically any other year. I mean, Birmingham the standouts, but even throughout the division, the Burton, Bristol Rovers, we've spent money. Those are teams that spent money that are not necessarily just clear at the top of the league. So yeah, it's such a tough. It's a different level from the National League and League Two. Yeah.
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah. Top half is anyway 100%.
Yeah.
Looking ahead to this weekend's fixture, obviously an away trip. But who will be making the journey down? Obviously, I don't think we've got the biggest allocation in terms of fans, and there's been
Should we talk about it.
There's been some disagreements on the allocation that we've received and some suggestions of what we could do in return. But players-wise, let's have a look at who's heading down to Stockport and who'll be in contention for this weekend's game. Now, I don't want to jinx it, but we're in this spot again where things look slightly better and slightly more optimistic than they have done in a little while. There is some good news. There are people coming back. Injuries are subsiding. People are coming out of the medical room, and we've had players back in training. And the injury list looks a little bit shorter and a little bit better than it has done. Now, I know we've been in this spot 3 or 4 times so far this season, where things look like sunshine and rainbows, and then all of a sudden it goes back to square one. But let's digest some of this. So Gethin Jones will be back in contention, probably going to look to start from but come on from the bench and impact the game. And Osei Tutu is back with us after his injury, which kept him out for a little while. Obviously Geth had some minutes with the B team. And then post-international break, we should have the likes of George Thomason, Mendes Gomez, Toll and Farino at late stages of their rehab, and they're coming back pretty soon as well. So Nathan Baxter is the biggest talking point, I think. He'll be back ready to start, which is great. I mean, Luke Southwood has done himself an enormous amount of credit in the 6 or so games that he's had. But Nathan Baxter is back and ready to start, and I think it's likely that we will see him between the sticks. I think that's all from the Wanderers' point of view.
You say that. Leslie's just summed it up well, though. It is only Thursday. Wait till training on Friday and we'll see what happens. Training injuries have been quite common this season, kind of out of nowhere. So, yeah, we'll see.
Until 6 of our first team players break the legs on at Lostock.
Yeah.
But Russ, what about you? How's your injury look been this season? What's the lineup looking like for Saturday?
Yeah, it's injuries seem to have been a problem for us for what seems to be years. Ian Dowden is in the comments, and he's the font of all knowledge when it comes to Stockport County. So I'm sure whatever I say now, if it's wrong, Ian will correct me in the comments, which is fine. Cheers, Ian, for watching this. Yeah, we've got a few injuries. So Tyler Onyango, he played really, really well against Reading last week, and then sustained an injury, so we're going to miss him. Kyle Noyle at the back. These are defenders, by the way. Kyle Noyle at the back is a long-term miss for us. We have got a couple of players who have just come back. They're just sort of getting up to speed, which is Macaulay Southam-Hales and Ryan Rydell. Jay Mingy's out at the back as well. He sort of plays on the right side of defence when we play a 5 at the back, sometimes sort of right wing back. A big miss for us is Nick Powell. So he's out for, I think it was 2 to 3 months. He's a massive miss. You've probably heard of Nick Powell.
Oh, yeah.
He's just like ahead of everybody else pretty much when it comes to sort of being that creative player. Callum Camps is injured. So the defeat on Tuesday against Wickham, a lot of people have said we need Camps back because he's definitely a League One midfielder, and he sort of controls tempo, and things settle down so much when he's on the pitch. So he's going to be a big miss on Saturday. And that's midfield. And then up front, not really anyone to speak of, really. We've got Michael Mellon on loan from Burnley, but I think he's played, I don't know, something like 4.5 minutes or something stupid. And he just keeps on getting injured. So he'll be a miss. But that said, we've got a really big squad. So whatever we put out on Saturday, that's no excuse. We've got players that can fill in. It's just where do they go? What shape is he going to play? But yeah, there's no excuses. We'll put our strongest team out on Saturday.
Yeah, we're the same. I mean, the main focus in the summer was to strengthen the squad because, I mean, the general consensus last season was that if we didn't get injuries to key areas up front and in goal specifically, we would have gone up. And so we've invested in a good sub-keeper with Southwood, who's been impressive, and we've got 5 or 6 forwards now that I'd be happy to start with up front. And ironically, it's midfield where we're looking a bit shallow at the minute, which we didn't last season. But yeah, you're right. We're the same. We have a big enough squad now. There's not really any excuses.
No, it certainly shouldn't be. And like Russ said there, whatever team goes out on Saturday should be enough to get the job done, from the viewpoint of both sides. But for any of you away fans that have been lucky enough to get a ticket in the Stockport County away end, David, unfortunately, you couldn't. You're not on your own there. There are plenty of us wishing that we had tickets. For those of you who were lucky enough to get a ticket in the away end, or in fact the home end if you are that way inclined, let's go and do our pub watch segment. And just before we start this, the Fanzone podcast don't advocate buying tickets in the home end for away games. Just but Russ, where can the away fans get some hands on some ale?
Oh, there's loads of places. I don't know how many. Have you both been to football before, or to football? Of course, you have to Edgeley before.
Unfortunately, I went to the FA Cup game a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Oh, did you? Oh, right. Okay. Right. Yeah. We won't talk about that. No. Yeah, no, there's loads of pubs. Go on Castle Street on Edgeley. There's I don't know. I've lost count of the amount of pubs that are on there. Probably somewhere between 8 and 10, I think, something like that. Castle Street is the street that runs parallel to Hardcastle Street, where the ground is, and there's a Mercian Way in between that. Ignoring Dowden, the Pineapple isn't the best place to go. I'll tell you that. So, although it is on Castle Street, but it's to be avoided. So you've got the good one for me is the Armoury on the top of Castle Street, which is on the roundabout. As you get off the train, you come to a roundabout. It's just on the left hand side there. I'm not sure if it's fans only, to be honest. I've never seen the sign saying fans only. So that's one. And then you can just literally, you're at the top of Castle Street, work your way down, and there's loads, and it goes all the way down to the bottom, and you're still within a minute walk from the ground. So yeah, loads of pubs to go on there. If you get there early, if you go to the train station or wherever you park in Stockport Town Centre as well, if you go to the marketplace, not only is there Wetherspoons there, there's lots of new sort of, call them artisan bars, little independent bars that have opened up. get anything from guest ales all the way to the usual favourites. Loads of little sort of alleyways with pubs and cocktail bars and stuff. So yeah, it's weird because it's had a lot of investment, Stockport, so it's a nice place to actually go and have a good evening out. But whereas I don't know, 10 years ago it was a bit of a dive, but it's a lot better now.
There you are. If you fancy an afternoon out, there's plenty of places to go. One thing you need to watch out for is avoid the pineapple. Very interestingly named establishment. Let's round off this evening's episode of the preview show then with our final section of the evening. What's the score? As always, for those of you who are watching along live and at home, get your comments in, get your score predictions in, and let us know what your thoughts, unless your name is Colin Yates, in which case don't put it in the chat. Don't bother saying anything because you'll probably make us look a bit silly. Ben, over to you first, though. What's your score prediction?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm actually going to bring up Ian's comment saying about how Bolton coming for a point on Saturday because, I mean, I know that'll upset a few. But I remember before this stretch of 3 games, I mean, I looked at them as these are 3 teams between us and where we want to be at the moment in terms of Peterborough, Stevenage away and Stockport away. And I thought, if we can get 7 points from these 3, I'd be pretty happy with that. And winning the first 2 was put into really good stead, where if we do go and get a point on Saturday, I wouldn't be all doom and gloom because I think Stockport are a good team. I think out of the promoted teams, it's funny. Even though Mansfield and Wrexham are above in the table at the minute, from what I've seen and the numbers behind it, to me Stockport look maybe the best out of the 4. We'll see how that pans out. And I aim out this is quite one of our toughest games in the first sort of 15 fixtures. Having said that, we're going to go and try and win the game. There's none of this. It's not going to be a Birmingham away where we go and put 10 men behind the ball and try and see out the game because we'll score a banger after 2 minutes and the game plan will be out the window like that, like Birmingham away. So yeah, we're gonna go there, go and try and attack, go and try and score. I mean, but twice this season we've said, it's going to be a really end-to-end game and. The one thing you can guarantee is goals, and that was Wrexham at home, which ended up 0-0. Peterborough at home, which ended up 1-0 after a rebound from a penalty in the 99th minute. So we don't know what we guarantee at the minute. But and I said last night, I don't think I've ever predicted us to not win on a preview show, and I'm going to keep that going. I said 2-1 last night, and I'm going to stick with it.
This is similar to what you said. This is I cannot for the life of me figure which way this is going to go because, like you said, we've said before that there's going to be goals and it's going to be an end-to-end game, and it's just not been the case.
Yeah,
I agree.
When you don't expect it at Stevenage and Northampton, there's 6 and 5 goals. Yeah.
I think exactly what you said. I agree with the fact that I don't think we're going to go for a draw. I don't think that's Ian Everett's nature against very many teams in the whole pyramid. Obviously, we saw it against Birmingham, but I don't think that'll be the case on Saturday. I think I'm going to go 1-0. And for me, it doesn't say it doesn't matter what the score is. I'm more concerned. If we were to come away with a point, the important thing for me would be the performance. If we go and perform well and come away with a point, absolutely fine. However, if we see performances like we have done earlier on in the season, then I think things will be a little bit tentative. But I'm going to go 1-0 to the Wanderers. Russ, over to our guest. How are you feeling ahead of Saturday?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I'm expecting a reaction because of the thumping we got on Tuesday. I'm pretty sure they would have been in training yesterday morning. With it being Thursday today, it really does depend. I'm hoping to see a reaction. We do like to try and keep the ball. His Charlie's sort of ethos is intensity is our identity. It's worked in National League. It's worked in League Two. I'm not quite sure it works with the players we've got in League One, especially against the bigger teams. So I'm not going to go big like Ian Dowden says in the comments 3-0. I'm going to go. I've got to back ourselves. So I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for the opposite of you, Ben. I'm going to say a narrow 2-1 win for us.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. Yeah.
Certainly is. It certainly is. And David there, he gets it. He said he'll do a prediction for Cole at 5-0 Bolton, which sounds about right for Colin. I don't think he'd probably be too far off with that. But that does round off this evening's episode of the preview show. It has, as always, been a pleasure to have you all with us. For those of you watching along at home, thank you all for tuning in. You have been amazing. As always, the live chat has been nice and filled with lots of comments, so we appreciate that. And of course, thank you to Russ from the Scarf Bergara War. Thank you very much for joining us, mate. We appreciate that.
Always.
Right. Until the next time then, take care. You've been watching the Fanzone podcast. You've been watching the preview show sponsored by Loving My Socials, and we will see you on Sunday for a post-match pod, hopefully with 3 points in hand. See you then.